What is going on with the power? Is there Dumsor? Why are we not having a schedule?
Well, let me say good morning to your cherished listeners and to, at the very outset, indicate that the Dumsor, as you and I know it, okay, was an power outage that stretched for in excess of 3 years. In fact, it was 4 years between 2012 and 2016, where because of some pipeline damage from Nigeria, the government at the time couldn't buy alternative liquid fuel to power our pumps largely. And so we slept in darkness for 4 years. What had happened over the past few days is that some obligation owed by GNPC to WAPCO was an issue. WAPCO threatened, GNPC made some initial payments. It wasn't satisfactory. We requested the Ministry of Finance to top up, had to go through some approval process. And as of yesterday evening, following WAPCO's withdrawal of their services, the Ministry of Finance has approved the sum of 10 million to pay for the part of that debt. And so that was the hiccup that we had encountered, which then led to outages over the past few days. But that has been resolved. Yesterday night, WAPCO services was restored, and gas was accordingly moved from the west to the east to power plants in the east. And so there's no doom to warrant a schedule, if I may add.
So you're saying that the definition of Dumsor is when the situation is protracted and when the cause is beyond our control. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, every cause is within your control because the fuel sources are varied. Okay, in the case between 2012 and 2016, if you look at the data that had been put out there by government at the time, there was some ship anchor that had damaged the West African gas pipeline, which was supplying us some fuel from Nigeria. That damage then led to the lack of fuel coming from that source. And so the alternatives were to buy liquid fuel, which is light crude oil or heavy fuel oil, to power the plants that were originally dependent on the gas. They just could not buy it. And so that's why we slept in darkness for 4 years.
Well,
I'm saying that subsequently following the gas, our own domestic gas, which then powers almost 90% of our power plants, the gas is mainly from the west. Of course, we still depend on some West African gas pipeline gas from Nigeria. But the bulk of our gas is domestic, mainly from the west. And there's a system that then moves excess gas from the west, which is Western region,
all right,
which is TEMA.
Okay.
That service is what there was some obligation.
Yeah, you explained that. I was just trying to clarify why you chose to define Dumsor the way you did. But that's fine. That's within your right to do. I'm not sure the Dumsor of the previous time was 4 years, as you say, but that's really a different debate. Yesterday, Kofi Boa said that we had shed 500 megawatts, and that was serious because according to him, in our history, we have not shed 500 megawatts before at a go. Is it correct that we shed 500 megawatts yesterday?
Yes, the power that shot for was about 700. Okay, and so what Greco, DRA, ACG did was to reduce the outage, the supply to our neighboring countries to reduce the impact on Ghana. I'm not so sure whether we've not shared 500 at a go because for the period between when Mr. Boa was Minister for Petroleum, I suspect he's the one that you made reference to.
Yes, Kofi Boa.
I don't have I don't have privy to the data now, but I'm not so sure whether all the time that we slept in darkness, it was as a result of a lesser quantity of generation that then led to the outages for the period. And then I didn't say it wasn't up to 4 years. I do not know where you have been. As far as I'm concerned, between 2012 and 2016 was the period where we experienced protracted power outages here in the country. As a matter of fact.
Do you not think that consumers deserve a schedule, even if it's 3 days, even if it's 1 week? Because the power outages we've been experiencing have been pretty regular for the past few days.
But,
why aren't people giving prior notice? Or we just get up and there's no power and nobody explains anything to us.
We were engaging. Okay. In fact, I personally had discussions with the managing director of WAPCO to defer the original cut-off date from 2nd January to the 5th, subsequently 7th, because we're working with Ministry of Finance to, as it were, make some funds available to enable us to pay WAPCO. And so the notification was such that it was really short notice. That's why it probably was not communicated by way of, if you like, a schedule. But remember that we've published schedules even as of 2 years ago when we were doing the program that we dubbed Dumsor. There was a need for us to take power off the grid. We communicated to Ghanaians for a very short period. There was. So if the managers deemed that this required public notification, schedule a day or two, I'm not so sure whether even the advert that you place can be effected within a day. In any event, it was on the 9th that WAPCO went off. As of the evening of 10th, they were back because of the payment that had been made to them.
All right. Fair enough. Just
in that period, a schedule publication would have been required.
Good. A month and a few days ago, specifically December 4, Sunan Asogli announced a shutdown of his power plant over government unpaid debt. After some negotiations, they reversed the decision and government paid some 30 million out of 60 million. So if you just take a month, there have been challenges with the sector, predominantly financial. So you've just told me that you've made some payment, Finance Minister has made some payment, and therefore WAPCO has backed down on its suspension of the flow. So if you look at it over a period of a month, we can say we are having intermittent power supply because of cash flow or financial issues. So if we are just waiting for the next supplier or the next service provider to say, you should pay me, then we go back to the same situation. So what I'm trying to say to you is that what you said does not appear to be the solution. You haven't solved it long term because there seems to be sort of a regular cash flow challenge which leads suppliers and IPPs or power producers to say we are threatening to shut down or we will shut down, and then you sort of come back and negotiate. That seems to be the situation we're in.
Well, not entirely. Okay, and I say so because the two circumstances are different. What we've done is to keep all the IPPs payments current. Okay, effective, I believe, July of 2023. All IPPs are paid on the tier 1 mechanism under the cash waterfall mechanism. They are paid, I believe, $43 million per month. But there's some outstanding obligation, okay, if you like, historical, that government has paid some, if you recall, in 2017, some significant payments were made through bonds that were raised on the EFLA to pay down a huge component of the debt. Subsequently, some additional debt has been accrued, for which we've ring-fenced and have negotiated largely with all the IPPs. We've reached agreements with some of them. There's some that still conversations are ongoing. Okay, Sunan Asogli, there was some commitment to pay them some money by a certain date. That did not materialize because of some other matters that came up, and they threatened to pull out. Government engaged them, and they, as it were, relaxed their threat and continue to provide the services. But it will be instructive to inform you that I have been part of some of the conversations, right? Out of an existing debt of about 1.7 billion, 35% of that is excess capacity payment, right? For power that we have never, ever used because of the over-contracting that the NDC government did. But it's an obligation of the state that has to be paid. So if for some reason ECD is unable to raise the revenue to pay, Minister of Finance has to come in. So that's the government of the problem. Okay, if 35% of 1.7 billion debt is for power that was contracted at the time that we didn't need it, those people ought to be asked questions. Are we?
And what percentage of the obligation is for this excess capacity thing you are saying?
I've said 35% of the 1.7 billion. 35.
Power that we have never used or have never needed. If you can.
Yes. And you see.
Sorry, and for how long? How long are we supposed to make that payment? How long?
Well, you were supposed to pay them when the invoices were issued. You're unable to pay, so it's accumulated over time. Okay? I'm saying that your demand will grow. Yes. And so you need to contract power. No issue. But the volume of power that you contract at every point in time is critical because you pay for it. And so if you need your peak demand is 2,500, you contract 5,000 megawatts of power and expect that would take 10 years of incremental growth to achieve the 5,000. Your obligation to pay for the 2,500 on a year-by-year reducing basis until that period where you consume all of it is real. But you hear our friends, especially my friends in the NDC, all sorts of talk. But this is money that could have been used for something else if you had contracted the power incrementally, say 3,000 or 500 additional, and plan yourself or pace yourself such that you increase it by some gradual addition. That's not what they did. In any event, at the time that they were contracting this power, it wasn't as if we were even having shortfall in generation. I will send you some documents that you see for yourself.
Okay. Now, in addition to all...
So that's the reality. Okay, and I am saying that yes, government has done well in raising the money to pay for it, but the occasional hiccups like the one that we saw in the past few days have come up, and we've dealt with it, such that the gas flow has been restored and power has been restored to the Ghanaian economy. Ensure that
just another point. Whilst the power supply has been intermittent, the government has now, through the GRA, Ministry of Finance, announced a 15% VAT on electricity consumption for those beyond a certain band. I mean, from my memory, in February, we had a tariff adjustment upwards by 30%. In June, we had an 18% adjustment. Indeed, it was only the third quarter of last year that we did not have an increment. So we've had consistently, if you compare January to now, over 50-something% increase in power accumulation. And you are adding a VAT to utilities. What is the logic in that?
Well, the rationale, I believe, the Minister of Finance provided in the 2024 budget statement, that there's a need for us to expand the scope of our tax net, right? And one of the means that they were using to ensure that was to reduce the rate of VAT and to expand the scope of coverage of VAT. And the expansion of the scope is what has affected the payment of electricity tariffs. Okay. Yes, of course, I've heard the complaints. This was communicated by a letter that I saw on social media myself yesterday, and following comments on social media, on mainstream media this morning. It's an issue of concern. But I guess that it's important that the Ghana Education Revenue Authority provides education. The Ministry of Finance comes out to spell out clearly the rationale. VAT is applicable on many, many services that we consume. And so if it's extended to electricity, I believe that the rationale to be explained. All these resources are what goes into paying for the bills that you and I enjoy. And so I think that they've thought through it and have put it out there. We need to interrogate for them to provide better clarity for the consumer.
The timing of this, with all the challenges we face in the economy, the massive levels of sacrifice Ghanaians have made with the haircuts, inflation, exchange rate things, taxes increase all over. Now you are taxing utilities. I mean, honorable, honestly, this is it's almost unconscionable that you can add a tax to tariff payment. Tariff already gone up and you are taxing the tariff. It's almost unheard of. Why? Why should Ghanaians have to pay? Because the tariff itself is going up, right? There's not the tariff is flat. With the tariff, I've told you.
We can have the debate. I welcome a healthy one. Okay, and I don't think that words like unconscionable and is what is going to as it were deal with the issue. Okay, there was a rationale that was provided in the 2024 budget statement. Part of IMF conditions was to increase our tax revenue, and so you need to look at the various levels of taxes and to see how you then manage it such that the impact is minimal. Okay, it's entirely possible that some new tax measures could have been introduced that then would have been much more adverse on the Ghanaian. President has indicated the need for us all to burden share. The Minister of Finance has indicated. Thankfully, the economic indicators are beginning to look in the right direction. We are hoping that things will stabilize. Inflation has reduced. Exchange rate is stabilizing. Of course, the pricing mechanism for electricity tariffs includes the exchange rate. And so if the exchange rate is stabilizing and it's coming down, I believe that last month or the last quarter when they did the adjustment, there was actually some reduction, albeit very minimal. Okay, but that's the mechanism that has been put in place to ensure that at least no debt is accumulated in the sector beyond what is already in place, so that the Ghanaian is also called upon by way of some introduction of new taxes to deal with them. And so it's a broad spectrum of issues that you are managing at one time. Yes, the global economy has been challenged. We all know that. I just came from UK last night, and for the period that I was there, everybody's complaining. Okay, yes, but the Ghanaian is looking to what he can get. Okay, and government has provided substantial relief in the 2024 budget to address some of these concerns that you raised. And let's all be hopeful as the global economic tensions ease. I'm sure that some of these things can be reviewed, and we all can march on this path together to building right.
All right. So just finally, just to confirm, so based on the payments made, you can confirm that the outages we experienced for the past 3 days are over. So today, 11th of January, there will be no outage.
100%.
Okay, we'll hold you to your word. Thank you for talking to us.
Sure.
MP for Second D, Deputy Minister for the Energy Sector, Honorable Andre Japan Mensah. Financial issue.